Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Gainsburg. I'm the founder of SoulSign. And here with me today is my dear and now old friend, Cynthia Miller. We wanted to talk together, and well, I wanted to bring Cynthia to your attention. If you've been on my list for a long time, you will have remembered the collaborations we've done together in the past. I wanted to have Cynthia on today to give her a chance to really speak about her latest book, which is really incredible. If you're familiar with Cynthia's work at all, um, you have no idea what this book is in store for you. It's extraordinary. So hello, Cynthia, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Yay, yay.
Yay.
I wanted to start out by just saying this. For me, Cynthia, your latest book is not just like one or even two things. For me, primarily, it's a complete textbook on the multidimensional reality that humanity has always been, that we've always had the potential of, but no, just now we're beginning to wake up to. Like for me, I'm starting to call this like a textbook for our implicit multidimensionality.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah. That's probably a really good description because it's pretty compact and dense. There's a lot of information in it. Yeah.
I love books that I'm so into that I want to read it slowly.
Oh, good.
This is one of those, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, I found, it's a no holds barred commentary on the depth, and this is my word, not yours, just the appalling level of unconsciousness we humans keep reporting on each other, the planet. And it goes into sometimes very specifically what we need to do inside of us to change that behavior. It was very courageous for you to include that stuff, that material in the book.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I've been hiding my whole life. And it's been a big deal to put this book out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
On that note, another facet of this book,
Mhm.
it's kind of like a partial memoir. Maybe that's too strong a word, memoir, but the reader really gets a lot more understanding and context for the like some of the more formative experiences of your life.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I decided to put it in to give credibility to a lot of what I was saying,
Mhm.
that I've personally gone through these different experiences.
Mhm.
So along with knowing things intellectually or knowing things from working with my clients, I have profound personal experience also.
Yes. Oh, profound isn't. Yeah, that's saying the least of it. I also wanted to tell everyone listening who has not yet read the book, the effect after finishing the book is it's the message, I guess, is like how powerful and beautiful we each are.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
It, like if someone were to read this book, like just to get through it and get the information, like just to get the information about the dimensions, they would really be missing, I think, the point or the most important point of the book, which is by exploring or by discovering and exploring the multidimensional nature of each of us, we learn like, whoa, like I am so much more than my mind or that one time in my life tells me I am,
Right. Yeah.
you know? So on that note, Cynthia, can I ask you a first question? Was there an experience in your life or an event that first awakened you to the fact that there's more than one dimension?
That's a great question. It's hard to pick out one experience because there have been a
Or a few,
lot.
or a few. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Um, well, it started when I was really little. And I flew with the angels every night. I can remember starting doing that when I was 2 years old.
Mm,
And then I would tell my mom about it, and she just freaked out. It was just not something you would ever discuss in our house,
mm,
even angels or anything like that.
mm,
And so, but I was very clear that the angelic realms and the 3D were radically different places, energies, frequencies
mm,
from a very young age. And I think I couldn't talk about it because my mother refused to have me speak anything about it. So, in a way, it kept it more pure. And so I could just explore that realm and then wake up in the 3D and have experiences in both. So
mhm,
that was the beginning of knowing there was more than just one dimension.
mhm,
And then
mm.
the next major event was I had a near-death experience and then a spontaneous Kundalini awakening.
How old were you when those happened?
I was 20, what was I? 25, 26.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow. That'll change everything in life.
yeah, this bolt of energy came up and completely rewired my brain in one breath.
Mm,
And I thought it would go away after a day or two, and then still never has because it was a permanent rewiring.
mhm,
And then I could see multiple dimensions all the time. And it was really confusing
mhm,
because I had no map. I didn't know what was going on.
mhm,
It's kind of like being thrown in multiple foreign countries with foreign languages and different cultures and different rules. And so it took me a long time to sort through and navigate of what was happening where. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
But that was back in 1972. And there wasn't the internet. There wasn't, I had no idea of even where to begin to search for information because it was all very foreign to me at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, I mean, that you made it even past and out of that experience is, you know, extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard for quite a while.
Yeah, that.
I'd walk down the street and I'd see inside people's bodies. And I didn't want to know all that information. And there was so much information coming from all these different dimensions. I was really having trouble on the 3D.
Yes.
Yeah, it just wasn't computing very well.
Mhm.
So that took a while to figure out.
You know, it occurs to me, Cynthia, that that many years ago that occurred to you, and then the many, many years it took to integrate this. Well, I mean, you've been such an inspiration for so many people, you know, through your books. What is
Thank
this?
you.
This is like your fifth book, or and all your clients.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like this book integrates all the work you've done up until this point.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my purpose.
Ah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like your book on gratitude was just, I mean, for me, it was groundbreaking to use the force uh, of gratitude, not just as a polite social thing, but actually for healing and for transformation.
Yeah.
And then the workbooks, the coloring books,
Uh-huh.
and then the unseen connection. I mean, all of that has been, I don't know, reading this book, it feels like they were all like steps to get you to this one.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, you seem to agree with that.
Yeah. I feel like this is a synthesis of my life's work is
Ah,
in this book.
ah.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that note, then, how
Yeah.
does this book, or writing it,
Uh-huh.
or not how does, but does this book then increase your ability to support people? and work with people?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. So I have this new model of reality with the 12 dimensions, and then all the tools to shift the old paradigm, shift the old programming that's in our bodies.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I've put that all together in the book, um, to lay it out to really assist people in their transformation.
mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I really want to do, is help to create a new reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, um, let me just say here, let me just grossly insert something here. If anyone watching or listening to this interview has any inclination at all or any curiosity, you owe it to yourself to reach out to Cynthia, visit her website, and sign up for a session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
Is it that each of our, I want to ask a question about, like, from all the people you've worked with and now writing this book and really going very, very deep and wide into each of the 12 dimensions.
Mhm.
Is it that we are each innately gifted or stronger in one of our dimensions and not others? Or basically, are all the dimensions equally available to us in our personal consciousness throughout our life?
So from what I see is different people are more aware of different dimensions,
More aware.
more aware. And they might, most people are aware of some of them, and they may not have categorized them as different dimensions, but they have different skills or different gifts. So the seventh dimension's about creativity. So this is where artists and writers
Hmm.
express themselves. And so some people are more adept or more fluent in the seventh dimension.
Okay.
But we're all really creative, but some people's creativity has really been squished.
I see. Is it fair to, wait, before we go there, is it
Yeah.
fair to say that some people's creativity is like sourced in the seventh dimension, but other people's creativity who could express as very, very creative people are sourced in a different dimension that doesn't come from the place of creativity, comes from the place of power or beauty or something? Is that how that works, or no?
Um, so in each dimension, there's like a frequency band of what it's about. So the seventh is about our creativity, and we all exist in all dimensions.
Hmm.
So in the seventh dimension, that's how this inner impulse of who you are is expressed in the world.
Hmm.
And we use that word creativity as just the word of how that gets expressed.
Hmm. I see. I see.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So each dimension has a different framework or a different frequency band of how we interact with the world.
Hmm. So some of us are more comfortable in some dimensions than others.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Does the same thing apply to healing? Like when I'm involved in a healing process, something from my unconscious or some part of me that's not in alignment with the rest of me, I am working on healing that. Does
Yeah.
that also source in one or more dimensions? Or is
Yeah.
that healing across all dimensions?
That's healing in all dimensions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times during the session, we'll work on multiple dimensions.
Huh.
So there might be something that we're working on from your childhood, and then something else, and it goes all over the map. And then whatever it was gets revealed and resolved
I see.
that we're working on.
Okay.
So it's not like they're separate. I just found it helpful to put them in categories just for our human brain to understand what's going on.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's new research from the Blue Brain Project in Switzerland that our brain functions on all these dimensions. We have the neurology in place. It's just we haven't allowed ourselves to fully explore and express that because it's really, it hasn't been accepted in our culture.
Well, I'm sure some people, if they were to come into direct experiential contact with the fact that they're operating in multiple dimensions at the same time, that they might not want to know that information. It might be a bit overwhelming for some people.
Right. Yeah. 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 We're led to believe we just exist on the third dimension and we only have certain things we can do, and we're very limited in our power, and we're limited in the vast, amazing beings that we are.
Very limited in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as an astrologer, there are 12 signs. The signs are, one sign is no more better or superior,
Right.
or more evolved than another. As you know, in the map of astrology, the signs specifically are equal facets of total consciousness.
Right.
You find the same thing with the dimensions? Or,
Yeah.
for example, is the 11th dimension clearly more something than the first dimension?
No, it's more like a circle than a linear chart,
Cool.
like the astrology wheel. It's this same concept.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we exist on way more than 12 dimensions, but I've just limited my book and everything to the first 12, thinking that's enough for people to relate to.
Yeah. You know, all 12 dimensions, like that pretty much covers all of me. Well, maybe not all of me that you're saying, but all of me that I can mostly deal with in my life.
Yeah.
Let me just say that those watching or listening to this interview here, each dimension is not just Cynthia like describing it. There are specific frequency or levels or substructures within each dimension. For example, the bottom sludge, the secret flow, and in each dimension.
Right.
Cynthia, going through each 12 dimensions and then the structures within each one, that's like 24 or 36 or something. Was it tiring? Like, this must have been exhausting, because I know you, when you do something, your whole body responds to it. It's not just in your mind.
Right. Yeah.
What was it like to write this book, basically?
It was intense. So I'd write a piece, and then my neurology would change.
Oh.
And then after my neurology would change, I would see it in a new light, and then I'd write it again. So I've written this book about 4 or 5 times completely.
Thank you for not charging us $300 for the book.
Because each time my DNA would shift, or the cellular structures would be in a new way, and so my brain would shift, and I'd see things in a whole new level. And another problem was, when I wrote my memoir, I looked at each chapter, and I'd write a chapter and get it complete, and then I'd move on to the next one. Writing this book was totally different. It was kind of like creating a layer cake, where you have one little layer of the first dimension, and so I'd write about it, but then it would influence all 12 dimensions. And so I'd go and rearrange everything. And then I'd write the next little layer, and that would go and rearrange all 12 dimensions. And so it was challenging.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my brain would rewire.
So then you'd
it,
be seeing things differently again.
I'd see things differently again. Because then there'd be more of each dimension coming in and interacting.
Hmm.
So it took way longer than I expected to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. The only experience I have even close to that, and it's not that. It was not as intense, was writing the book on the phases of Venus. And when I would get an insight about one of the phases,
Hmm.
I'd have to check in with everything I wrote about the other phases and say, is this consistent? Like, is this
Right.
like, how does it affect it? So I know what you mean, but these are dimensions. They're not linear like phases of Venus are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then so we also have these matrices, and so different layers of the matrix would release. And so I'd see things completely with new eyes
Wow.
on one dimension. So as you're saying, then that would reverberate out into all the other ones.
And the matrix for you here in this context is what?
So it's like a grid system of how we're supposed to behave.
Mm-hmm. Ah, ah, how we're
And
supposed to behave. Okay.
yeah, and it's like putting us in little boxes,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
but the little boxes don't necessarily all coincide with each other. So we
Mm-hmm.
might have this one belief from our parents of how we're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's this other reality from our school system of how we're supposed to be, and then our religion will say something else about how we're supposed to be, and all these can be conflicting.
Yes. Mm.
But it's all in this matrix, and you start to release the matrix, and then all these conflicting energies arise, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
It
then
seems.
it's clearing out the whole illusion of all of what that's created,
Mm.
and then you get deeper into the truth of who you really are.
Right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, does the principle of karma, basically that our positive and negative qualities in this life and somehow were created or affected by past choices and actions in the past, does that play into the dimensions, or does every dimension, or like, is that present in some of the dimensions, or is that in all the dimensions?
No, that's in all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I call it karmic glue, because it's like this sticky stuff that is unconscious that's playing in our life, especially in relationships
Uh-huh.
in this life that we may have had past lives with
Yes.
and past karma with. And so it's kind of like this sticky, tarry goo that interferes with interactions today in this life with whoever we're interacting with.
Hmm.
And that can happen on any dimension.
Ah, I see. So based on what dimension it happens on, can maybe tell us, or not just give us insight, but mm, help us to understand our thinking or our choices are influenced by things that we're not entirely conscious of, like, and
Right,
where,
right,
like the dimension that holds our creativity.
right,
If I have lessons from the past that I haven't learned yet, but I've been trying multiple times and I haven't yet learned it, those lessons or those surrenders or whatever it might be, then in this life, when I'm trying to express myself creatively, um, which you're saying is sourced in one of the dimensions,
right,
I'm not going to have access to it. And the reason for that is not necessarily because of who I am in this life. This
right.
person, my wiring, it comes from the past. Is
Exactly.
that right?
Exactly.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And so also related to this karma would be, so you might meet someone who tends to spark your creativity or dampen your creativity.
Mhm.
And that could also be something from the past karmic
Mm.
programming,
Mhm.
rather than what's happening currently now in this moment.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's an amazing puzzle to keep unraveling.
Totally. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like it won't ever stop. There's more.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah. I mean, who we are is so vast that there's this exploration that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the same question, but applied not to past life sources,
Right.
but this life, genetics and epigenetic influences. Same thing here. We can, or
Yes.
you are able to identify which dimension some of our genetic inheritances, whether they're
Right.
biological or epigenetic psychological patterns or what have you.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then what I also see about the DNA, it gets covered with these layers of toxins so that the DNA isn't
Mm.
triggering in its most optional function. So, the best way possible.
Mm. And when you're speaking of DNA, I'm guessing you don't just mean the two strands that scientists can have identified. You're talking about all of them,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So for those watching or listening, we have a lot more than just the two physically identifiable genetic strands. You want to talk a little bit about that, Cynthia? Or
Yeah. And we have different DNA strands on all dimensions.
right. That's very exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And a lot of the DNA has what I call is corrupt DNA coding. So you can imagine
Mm.
that we're like, compare it to a computer, that over time your computer gets glitches
Mhm.
and you have these old programs that kind of block out the newer programming if you're up, adding new things to your computer. So
Mhm.
we're pretty aware of glitches and malfunctions that happen in our computer. So just imagine that the DNA has been with us since the beginning. And so throughout all that long history of the DNA, it gets corrupt, or it's not functioning quite properly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And science has shown us that we can shift our DNA with our consciousness.
Mm.
Yeah. So I have a lot of different scientific data in the book
Yes, you
that's
do. That's right.
backing up a lot of what I have to say.
Yes.
Yeah, which is exciting because when I got my PhD back in 1985, I could see all this and I knew all this, but there wasn't the scientific data that there is now
I
to
love it. The field is catching
firmly
up to you. Yes.
back it up. It's like, oh, it's so exciting.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So every time I learn something new, it's like, oh, yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like learning that the brain is wired on all these different dimensions. It's like, oh, thank you. Yeah. And that we can shift our DNA with our consciousness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's not this woo-woo thing. It's actually a scientifically based process.
Mhm. Very exciting.
Thank you.
So now that you have the book out,
Yeah.
well, I guess this is more coming from what I've done with my books is, do you plan on teaching or holding classes or Q&A or you're like, no, that's not my thing. I want to write the book, get it out now.
So I did need a little time after writing the book just to get back to life again.
Like a couple years, maybe.
No, but I am planning on doing some online courses and different events, and I'm working on a lot of that behind the scenes right now.
Great. Yay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah.
So that's all my questions. Cynthia, do you have anything else you want to share about the book or?
Um, well, a few people have said it's a little bit dense,
Okay.
and uh, so I might throw out the idea of just reading it first, almost like a fairy tale. So you don't have to really try and grasp it,
Yes.
to just get kind of an overview
Yes.
of what it's about. And then go back in the second time and really go in for deeper understanding. But it helps to have the full picture, because I'm presenting a completely different model of reality than what we know.
Yes, totally. Totally you are.
Yeah, and so it takes a while to grasp.
Yes.
And we aren't used to thinking in 12 dimensions
No. No.
and what's going on. And so I really invite people to read it with kind of an open mind and a kind of more fun of, oh,
Mm,
like an adventure
mm.
into some world we don't know yet.
Oh, I
But
love
we are creating this world.
Yes.
And we need to, from what I see, we need to make some major shifts, because there's a lot of negativity out there in the world right now that's creating a reality that a lot of us are not pleased with.
Yes.
And we have the power and the ability and
Mm-hmm.
the amazing brilliance to create something incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of like getting people to peel away those layers
Mm.
of doubt and
Right.
those layers of I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy, all those layers that aren't who you are.
Right.
Because who you are is incredible. And we each have such brilliance that we really need to share.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Wow.
So that's my hope.
Mm-hmm. When I was reading it, I had to read it slowly. Sometimes in a given dimension chapter, it took me 2 or 3 readings to grok it
Yeah.
before I went to the next one.
Yeah.
So if that's for you, everyone, then please take your time reading it. So one way to do it is read it as a fairy tale through and then go back maybe. But another way to do it is to just read it very slowly and really grok every chapter, every even paragraph that Cynthia uses or to describe each of the dimensions, to describe the 3 layers, where in the book, Cynthia kind of sees and groups sets of 4 dimensions into a layer. And those 3 layers are all 12 dimensions, make up the total multidimensional toroidal field that we each are.
Yeah.
So if any of you listening or watching this have explored the torus as your own innate structure, you're going to be very familiar with how Cynthia pictures this in the book, or pictures each of us, our structure, and then how to leverage that for healing or for waking up to who we really are.
Yes. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Perfect.
So Cynthia, where can people get the book?
Well, I actually have a copy. I'll show you what the book
Yes,
looks
please.
like.
Please. Yay. The inner
Can you see it?
revolution. The inner revolution. Trailblaze your new luscious reality. Yes.
So you can find it on my website. You can find it on Amazon. You can order it from your local bookstore.
Okay.
And I think it's also on Barnes and Noble.
Great. So your site is drcynthiamiller.com.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Strongly recommend, everyone. Definitely worth having and checking out, because you're not going to find not just this information so articulated, but organized in the way that it's so understandable and grokkable. You really want to check this out, this book. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Adam. It's so much fun to be with you always.
Always with you,
Always.
Cynthia. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yay.
Yay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.